everyone, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu. Hope you're doing well. So it's Sunday, like I like to do videos, and it's approaching the end of our summer season, which means we'll be putting gis on very soon. Actually, a week from today, 1st of September, we'll be putting gis back on, and we'll have them on for 9 months. So we went no gi for 3 months, so we'll go 9 months with the gi on. And as I explained in another video, hopefully we can put this link up for you, that video in the past, why we go gi versus no gi. And the primary reason is because there are different parts of the game, whether they be offense and defense, for one. And when you have the gi on, your defense is forced to get better because there's a lot of friction, your opponent can grab you, and it's a lot harder to get out of a pin with the gi on versus without the gi on. However, when you're not wearing the gi, then your offense is a little more difficult because your opponent is so slippery. And using force will, force in a movement will enable you to be able to power out of a lot of would-be submissions if you're not wearing a gi. So it actually pays to do both gi and no gi. So we're switching back to the gis come September 1st, which is in a week from today. What I wanted to do was answer a question, and this is from, it looks like Ian, and I don't recall ever answering a question for him before, but this is actually a very good question, as they all are, but this one is particularly good. It's a response to our video last week. Do you regularly get injured in jiu-jitsu? And is it worth the effort, to train knowing that injuries are gonna be something you're gonna come across? We had a couple of people chime in and say, hey, knowing the kind of injuries that people go through, it's really not worth it to train. And, which is fine, if that's what you feel, I'm perfectly okay with it. But then they follow it up with, why would you or why would anyone do it? Okay, and when you think about it in those terms, then I do have kind of an issue with it. For instance, almost everybody who watches this video, almost everybody who's watching this video now has either gotten into a car or will be getting into a car either before or after this video, before you watch it. Riding in a vehicle is probably the most risky thing we do all day. Accidents are very commonplace. If they weren't, then we wouldn't mostly all have car insurance, right, to cover those accidents. Now, accidents, depending on how fast you're going, can be fatal. However, how many people doing jiu-jitsu die? Or even how many people doing Vale Tudo die? MMA die? I guess it does happen, but it's such a rarity that it's statistically insignificant. Now, the injuries, yes, the injuries can come. Now, if you're just a couch potato, then yeah, you're not gonna get elbow injuries or shoulder injuries or neck injuries in that way. But you'll end up having other types of injuries or ailments due to a sedentary lifestyle. If you're a couch potato, you probably don't eat well as well. So then people say, well, what about walking? Well, moderate walking really doesn't create a ton of problems for you. But what about if you jog? Well, my wife started jogging maybe a few years ago when she started doing these morning boot camps, and now she suffers from plantar fasciitis. A lot of soldiers, from carrying those heavy rucksacks, they'll suffer those types of injuries as well. Neither of them, it's not jiu-jitsu for either one of them. It's just, the point is that you can get hurt doing a bunch of things. What about that inflammation? They call it tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, right? I think this is golfer's elbow and this is tennis elbow. That's an ailment. And sometimes the ailments that you have could be just inflammation, as we talked about in another video about your diet. If you're going to judge people who do jiu-jitsu by the injuries they get, then perhaps you should kind of look at yourself. Anyway, Ian asks, how do you feel about the long-term effects of training on children? My son has been in jiu-jitsu since he was 4. I don't know how old he is. He's going to be 9 in a few months, so 5 years. We train for self-defense and not competition, so we are focusing more on just learning and perfecting technique rather than physical conditioning. That seems to be a good lifelong jiu-jitsu strategy. My belief is that conditioning will come with training, and we're in class 2 to 3 days a week, which is good. I'm worried, however, about the long-term impact on his body. I don't want him to suffer from chronic pain or seized up body parts later in life. What are my thoughts on this? You bring up a good point, because the one thing that we don't want is we don't want our kids to suffer any kind of permanent damage based on anything we've put them into. Now, you have to kind of look at it this way. So my kids did jiu-jitsu, and my daughter just got her first injury from jiu-jitsu, which was a sprained MCL, and she was in a brace for 6 weeks, and she's in rehab right now, but she's back to being on the mat. So is that a long-term thing? It could be. I don't know. It's a sprain. It wasn't a tear. As long as it's not a tear, then I'm sure the body would heal it, especially being 14 years old. But will it hurt her later in life? I don't know. But then again, there are parents that enroll their kids in soccer. And, common injury in soccer is an ACL tear, especially for girls. In jiu-jitsu, stuff can happen. But you have to look at what the end goal is. So for me, entering my kids in jiu-jitsu, or putting them into jiu-jitsu and training them and teaching them, is for them to have a base of self-defense. So you can kind of think to yourself, well, if the child does get injured, or maybe even the teenager, child less so, teenagers more so, if the teenager does get injured in jiu-jitsu, just from practicing jiu-jitsu, is there a trade-off between that and maybe a situation at school where they get a fight put onto them, and they're going to have to defend themselves? Well, what if they don't know how to defend themselves, and how injured would they become if they end up on the wrong end of some kind of strike, whether it be a fist, a kick, or a baseball bat? Who knows? Now, granted, if you're taken by surprise, then you're going to suffer the same type of ailment versus if you're ready, versus if you're untrained, excuse me. But if you're ready because you're trained, then that outcome will probably be different. So then it comes down to, all right, so my daughter sprained her knee training, but in an altercation, she came out, alive, right? So if I think in those kind of terms, then by all means, the training is worth it. Now, with children and injuries, I've been training children for several years now, and I have not seen any injuries in children. Now, are we lucky? Perhaps. Maybe there's a little bit of luck in there. Our classes are small. We don't let our classes get larger than 12 kids. So, we lose sight of the kids. If you have 30, 40 kids running around in a room doing stuff, and you can't possibly watch them all at the same time. 12 is hard enough as it is. So it's important to be able to keep an eye on them. Number two is to make sure they have safe habits. When you have a kids program that they have to use that to drive the revenue of the school, so they're trying to get as many kids in as possible. And a lot of schools, they charge less for their kids program than their adults program. Why? I don't know, because it's much harder to teach kids than it is adults, because you have to keep on them in a different way than you do with adults. Kids often don't have that regulator in them that tells them maybe doing it this way is not smart. Whereas an adult, having gone through life experience, we call that wisdom, they know that if they fall a certain way, they're going to get hurt. Or they maybe have fallen a certain way and they know they've gotten hurt. Or they may have injured their knees and know that if they get to a certain spot, they will injure their knees. Whereas kids don't know that yet. So the instructor has to really keep an eye on the kids and make sure that they're training in a way that is good for their safety as well as the safety of others. That's not an accident on our part. We really do watch our kids and make sure they're doing things in a safe manner so that we can try to prevent injuries as best we can. On the other hand, kids are very flexible. They're very, they don't injure as easily as an adult would. A lot of it just has to do with the weight of the human body. If you have a 250-pound guy getting thrown and falling, then he has more chances to hurt something than does a 50-pound child or a 75-pound child will, because just the weight of the impact won't hurt them so much. Now, even think of cats, right? You talk about cats being able to jump off or fall off of a one-story building, off the roof of the building perhaps, and land on their feet and just simply walk away. A lot of it has to do with a cat might be 3 pounds, whereas if you throw a dog over, a small dog like a Chihuahua, that dog is still going to be about 8 or 10 pounds, right? So just the force of the weight just increases. Now, And that's why I made sure to say children versus teenager, because the children, because they're more flexible, they're lighter. We do a lot of throws with the kids, and we're taking that opportunity of them being young and being unafraid, because they don't have that regulator in them, right? Being unafraid, we take that time to teach them how to move correctly in the throw, how to fall correctly, how to land correctly, how to break their fall. And it's easiest to make it an instinct with them than it is with an adult. Somebody who comes into the studio at 35 years old, never learned how to do a break fall. Now they're being introduced to a foreign movement called a break fall, and while they're trying to learn it, they're landing and they're getting hit by the ground, right? The ground, big impact. You can appeal to their common sense and get them to rationalize that this is the thing they need to do. But at the same time, they're always going to have that part in the back of their mind that says, hell with this, I don't want to do this anymore. And as a result, they don't come to judo classes, which is why our judo classes aren't nearly as full as our jiu-jitsu classes. Although a lot of our more recent members have been younger, say the 20s, and they're more apt to want to try judo and are less apt to be in pain when class is over. Even though we've gone through the steps of having a suspended mat system, which gives a lot more than typical mat on concrete. But the children, I wouldn't necessarily worry so much about them. Just make sure that they're learning the correct skills, they're doing things in a safe manner. And as long as it's safe, let them do it all the time, or have them do it all. So with the kids, in our kids class, for instance, kids never start on their knees. When we're sparring, they always start from their feet. They think it's weird if you try to slap hands and bump fists when you're on the knees, because they always stand up. Even though they may do it, if I tell them to do it, they're still looking at me like, are you sure it's okay? Because like I said, we never let them do it from their knees. So if they stand and they're getting thrown, then they're more apt to fall correctly, and they're less likely to be injured when they become teenagers. It's not to say we don't teach teenagers to do the same thing we do. Only adults do we have them. We still do takedowns with adults. We just don't do them to the volume that we do for the kids. So if your son is doing this, Ian, I really wouldn't worry about the injuries so much. If he sustains an injury and then does not want to come back to jiu-jitsu, then what that basically tells you is he doesn't enjoy jiu-jitsu, and he's doing it because you're forcing him to do it. Right? On the other hand, you have these other kids that sustain injuries in sports, and they recruit from their injuries and they're right back. So if you can kind of give your child this feeling of this is a fun activity, then when they become injured, they get right back onto the mat. So like with my daughter, she's injured, but she's gotten right back onto the mat. My son, it was like that with his wrestling. He had a couple of minor injuries, just more like aches and bruises and stuff, but it never stopped him. He got back on the mat and just kind of dealt through it. That's what we all do. I mean, life is about overcoming obstacles, and getting hurt is an obstacle that we need to overcome. And that does make you stronger in life. I think, as a parent who does jiu-jitsu, I think you're doing the right thing by introducing this to your son and having had him done it since he was a young age. This is a gift that you're giving him that a lot of other parents either don't think of giving it to them. They think it's a better gift to give them soccer skills than self-defense skills. But that's me. But in my mind, you're doing a very good service to your child by giving them these skills, giving your son these skills that he will need to defend himself later in life. Work on making sure that he's training in a safe manner. After that, don't worry about it too much. But at any rate, that's all I got for you on this video, and I appreciate you sending in that question so I can answer it, and this will be for the benefit of everybody else. I'm sure other people are thinking this as well. At any rate, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so, and if you can, hit the like button, and make sure to hit that bell so that you get future updates. We've also got some links in the comments below. If you could click on them, there's one for t-shirts, the Common Jiu-Jitsu t-shirts. We have also for our Patreon channel. So if you want to see how we do things on a technical side, that'd be the best place to do it. That's all I got for you. Take care. Happy training. Bye-bye now.